Okay guys, here's another idea of movies video. Last time when I did one of these videos, I did a whole list of ideas as a whole big plot for a sequel for the recent movie Encanto from last year, right? And now, here's another list of ideas of another movie that I already mentioned in another one of my last videos. The list of movie ideas that are either reboots, adaptations, original movies, sequels, prequels, you name it. And this one that I have right here, that I have a list of here on Google Docs, is Annie, but it's not the usual Annie movie. No, no, no. This is the Annie that takes place on the 1960s. 1960s Annie. No more Great Depression. No more modern 2014 Annie. No. No 80s or 90s Annie. No. I wanted to choose the 60s. And we'll explain the 60s part at the end. So here it is. It takes place in the year of 1967 instead of the early 1930s Great Depression, because we all know in the original as well as the musical that it takes place during the Great Depression. And of course, because of it being in 1967, instead of meeting Franklin D. Roosevelt, FDR, the president, it's Lyndon B. Johnson. When Annie and Daddy Warbucks meet the president, it's going to be Lyndon B. Johnson instead. You have to do your research on knowing who the president was at the time. And since it's the 60s, it's going to be more rock and roll like. And as for cameos of celebrities, of course, of the time, I was thinking of maybe having the Beatles played by lookalike actors and Elvis. I mean, come on. Whenever I think of the 60s, I think of Elvis and the Beatles. I mean, sure, people think of Elvis in the 50s and 70s as well, and the Beatles were still making their music in the 70s, but I feel like the 60s were the best decades for both the Beatles and Elvis. And they'll be prominently mentioned throughout the movie, and even their songs would be played, which will be a lot of royalty fees, considering that both Elvis and the Beatles are both pretty expensive to get their songs in the movie. To any movie, that is. But also, the movie will once again take place around Christmas time, because Annie, the original musical, took place around Christmas, and the original 1980s movie took place around summer and not Christmas. As for the Disney movie, the made for TV Disney movie, that one actually did take place around Christmas. And then the recent 2014 movie and the live musical from last year both took place at different times as well. Actually, the live musical from last year actually also took place around Christmas. And as for the 2014 horrible, crappy modern movie, that one took place like at a random time that didn't take place around a certain holiday. Yeah. Anyway, back to the list. There will be cameos of past actresses who portrayed Annie, like the 1982 movie, the 1999 movie, the 2014 movie, and even the 2021 movie. And even past performers of the musical, like not just past performers who played Annie, but also past performers of all the orphans and all the kids, all grown up and such. And the new actress portraying Annie will be confused on who they all are, and will even question whether or not they all look familiar. She'll be like, who are they? Who that person looks kind of familiar, but at the same time, I don't know them. You know, like that. And like I said in that last video of ideas of movies, it won't be like a multiverse where all the Annies get to meet each other. No. No, it will be not like that. No. I don't want it to be a rehash of Spider-Man No Way Home. And like I said before, I will review all the Spider-Man movies again, not just the original trilogy starring Tobey Maguire, not just the two movies starring Andrew Garfield, but also the MCU movies, and even the animated Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, of course. Because now there's going to be another animated Spider-Man movie next year. Yeah. Spider-Man's on a roll in recent years. Anyway, back to Annie. Miss Hannigan will be committed for her actions in the end of the movie, while both Rooster and Lily will be arrested. Isn't that how it was? So that's basically how it was originally, right? Of course. Every song from the movie, or from the musical, my bad, will be in the movie except We'd Like to Thank You, Herbert Hoover, because Herbert Hoover wasn't really relevant in the 60s, was he? I don't know. He wasn't president. No, he wasn't in charge, no. Alright, so it'll be replaced by an original song made for the movie, and it'll be 60s rock themed. Yeah. Again, rock and roll themed. And as for other celebrities in the 60s who will make cameos, But also as a little bonus for Elvis, it would either be a really, really good professional impersonator from Vegas that can play Elvis, or maybe have Austin Butler from the recent Elvis movie. Yeah! Has anyone ever seen the recent Elvis movie, the biographical Elvis movie directed by Baz Luhrmann? You know, the same guy that made Great Gatsby and Moulin Rouge, you know? That Baz Luhrmann? Yeah. The recent Elvis movie, from what I've heard, is good. I haven't seen it myself yet, but I heard it's good, even though Baz Luhrmann himself isn't the best director, but decent visuals. Anyway, as for Columbia Pictures, it would once again distribute the movie, because I'm pretty sure Columbia Pictures owns the movie rights to pretty much all Annie things, you know what I mean? I mean, every single Annie adaptation has been released through Sony, even the Disney one, because the 1999 Disney movie was the only movie that Disney and Sony have ever collaborated with, and the only other closest thing is probably the MCU Spider-Man movies, because since Disney owns Marvel, the only character that Marvel can't hold on completely 100% in movie-wise is, of course, Spider-Man. We'll talk about Spider-Man even more again on a different subject. And now I kind of want a crossover between Annie and Spider-Man. I mean, it could happen. Who knows? That is, unless Disney finally buys the rights to Annie or something. I don't know. Instead of Sony. Whatever. Alright, so at number 11, Daddy Warbucks has a crush on his secretary and assistant, Grace Farrell, just like before, but this time he tries to propose to her throughout the movie, like a running gag where he gets interrupted, but then they finally do get married at the end of the movie. So, yeah, Grace Farrell also tries to ask him out, but, you know, they both get interrupted. They both get, you know what, blocked. I can't say it on YouTube, of course. They get married, yeah. Sandy the dog will be male again, and the same exact breed as the 1982 film, because I always thought the breed of the dog of Sandy in the first 1982 movie looked so good compared to the other breeds. I don't know. And of course, at number 13, Annie's orphan friends are fans of Elvis and the Beatles, and they dressed up as them at the end of the movie, you know. Imagine a bunch of orphans dressed as the Beatles and Elvis. And of course, they dress up as them while visiting the Statue of Liberty at the end of the movie. They visit the Statue of Liberty, because I don't think Annie or her friends at any adaptation has ever visited the Statue of Liberty since they're literally in New York City. And it'll also happen during the Tomorrow finale reprisal. Because the movie always, all adaptations of Annie always usually ends with a Tomorrow reprisal. And then at number 14, there will be a mid-credits scene in the modern time where Annie is 70 years old and retired billionaire. A mid-credits scene, not a post-credits scene, a mid-credits scene, where an old Annie in her 70s is retired today at this moment. She's a retired billionaire as she inherited Daddy Warbucks' corporation. She inherited everything from him. And at number 15, there will be references to the My Ironic Life reboot franchise. And again, we'll talk about My Ironic Life again. It's originally my autobiography, but then I want it to be a reboot series of movies, a what-if scenario. That's all I'm going to tell you about My Ironic Life, of course. Sorry, people. There will be references because there will be a different actress playing Nanny Jane's mother. Nanny Jane's a new character for the movie franchise. Like a young actress playing Nanny Jane's mother, as well as old characters in their youth. Number 16, there will be flashy colors and stunning visuals during the songs, particularly in the orphanage, and the dancing will be a lot more choreographed than ever before. So much awesome dances from the 60s. And as for the colors and stunning visuals, it won't be psychedelic or drug-like. No, it's just going to be flashy and colorful for all the kids to like. Yeah. And that's about it with this list, yeah. Not much to say. This isn't as much of a long video compared to Encanto, but again, like I said, it just really makes a lot of sense, for me at least, to be in the 60s, because it still feels old-fashioned to be in the 60s. That's why I wanted to choose it, because it still feels kind of old, but not too old, because there are still people out there that remember the 60s, old people that remember back in their day in the 60s, they did this and this and that, and blah, 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 blah. And plus, come on, I just love the 60s. I mean, yeah, there probably are a few dark things, just like in the 70s too, but again, like I said, Elvis and the Beatles, come on. I mean, I know there's plenty of other iconic musicians that I could think of that could be in the 60's as well as other celebrities at that point. But to me, on the top of my head, as celebrity cameo appearances, of course, played by lookalikes, because the majority of the Beatles, two of them, of course, are dead now, while the other two, they're way too old. And Elvis, of course, died right before the rest of them, of course. Anyway, I really hope that this adaptation will be just as big as Encanto 2, of course. And also, hopefully, maybe if they do make another Annie, especially with me involved, it will probably be the most ambitious project of all Annie adaptations, because so far the most ambitious that was, of course, the 2014 movie, because it was set in the modern time, but it failed miserably because it was total crap. Oh my goodness. Annie, the 2014 movie, was horrible. It's straight up freaking dog crap. Other movies, they're good. The 1980s movie, still fun. The 1999 made for TV movie, definitely good. And then, of course, the most recent musical adaptation, the live one, okay. All Annie adaptations are pretty good except for the 2014 movie. But mine, it'll definitely stick out. Sure, some people might say it's just a rehash, but there will be some new stuff thrown in that I haven't even added on this list yet. We'll just have to wait for that, folks. So I hope you all have enjoyed this video. Just make sure to comment and subscribe, and stay tuned for more new videos. So yeah, peace out and rock on, guys.